Some of those big national issues affecting us this morning. We welcome back U.S. Congressman from Pennsylvania, Representative Scott Perry is here. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning, and I trust that your wife had a wonderful Mother's Day.
She did indeed, yes.
And I want to start off by saying, you know, a lot of folks called their moms yesterday.
Yes.
In the past, were those calls recorded by the National Security Agency?
Well, they say it's collecting the metadata, so not necessarily the call, but the time of the call and which number called which number. And that's still occurring.
Okay.
We've got some legislation coming up to reauthorize the Patriot Act. Now, interestingly enough, the Second Circuit Court said that the current legislation does not allow for the bulk data collection, but did not go as far enough to say it was a constitutional violation. But I think that's going to play into the legislation that we look at towards the end of the month when it expires.
All right.
Is this something you think that should change? I mean, what are you going to vote?
I do think it should change. Actually, the maker of the original bill, the Patriot Act, Sensenbrenner from Wisconsin, has a new bill, the USA Freedom Act, which limits the ability for bulk data collection, requires the FISA courts to do certain things, has an emergency procedure, but much more transparency. And should we be collecting all this data and maintaining all this data is really the question. So
right.
I've got some very grave concerns, but at the same time, uptick in terrorism, ISIS, you know, lone wolves in America using social media to recruit people. And so there's a lot of concern, but there has to be a healthy balance of protecting the country and providing our civil liberties and our protections.
That's the thing. People are wondering, what do you do instead, I guess, is the alternative to this. So anyway.
Well, you know, do we need to be collecting all this information on people that, you know, without any probable cause? Is really the question. Should we be doing that? And constitutionally, the circuit court at least said that we shouldn't be, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll keep an eye on that. We wanted to work towards this as well.
Right.
The president, he's now pushing for some new trade authority that he hasn't had in the past. It seems nationally a lot of Republicans are on board with this. On his own side, he's having some trouble getting this through. What would this actually give him? What would change?
Well, fast-track authority gives him the ability to negotiate on our behalf. And the deal is that, generally speaking, if you have that, Congress gets an up or down vote once the agreement is made. But there is a lot of concern. We don't get to. We can see the agreements, but you can't take notes. You can't take any information out of the room right now, and you can't make adjustments to the agreements. And so, without that transparency, and quite honestly, the distrust that happens in Washington, are we really going to get an up or down vote? And what's going to be in this agreement? Are they good for America? Why aren't we doing the one with Europe first as opposed to the one with Asia? There are a lot of questions about it.
So you have just as many questions as we do.
Absolutely.
It sounds like
yes.
it. Now, there's an idea about government here in Pennsylvania that it be reduced in size, and an amendment would reduce Pennsylvania legislators by 25%,
right.
Congressman Perry, to potentially save more than $5 million a year. So what do you think?
Well, this is actually legislation that I originally co-sponsored and authored when I was in the House of Representatives. But understand, it has to be passed in 2 consecutive sessions. It requires a constitutional amendment, so essentially the founding document for the state, and then it goes to the people. Now, some concerns, certainly the cost effectiveness or the reduction in cost of which most people are interested in. It maybe makes it a little easier to get things accomplished because you have less people. But the other thing it might do is allow more influence for the cities and the urban areas as we reduce the size of the legislature, and less influence for rural and suburban areas, and that's a concern for a lot of people as well. So never simple, and but you know, the people should decide, and that's where it will go eventually.
Yeah, it does work in some other states, though. Some other folks are thinking, yeah, why can't it work in our state?
Absolutely.
Save some money in the meantime, and then some of those guys, though, have to vote to maybe lose their own jobs, though, which is always a tough one out there.
Not easy, right? Yeah. Not easy to accomplish.
We'll keep an eye on that then. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, as always.
Great to be here. Hope you called your mom or spent some time with your mom.
Right,
as well,
yes.
As I did.
We got to do what you got to do, right? And right now, we got to head it over to...
I had a wonderful Mother's Day.
A good Mother's Day. It was great. We like that as well. Good to